What up, my blushing glams? Saga fed for me. It's your girl Blush, and I'm back with another episode of Glam Chat, and it is Women's History Month. Women's History Month. Whatever. And it is Women's History Month. And guess what? Women rock. In case you haven't heard, let me be the first to remind you that women rock. All women, all shapes, sizes, religion, shades, demographic, we all rock. Okay? And I'm gonna be honest, my introduction to realizing how much it rocks to be a woman, how women are awesome, is actually when I became a mother. Like my journey through motherhood. That doesn't mean that if you're not a mother, or if you have not been able to experience that you don't rock. It's just that was my introduction to the journey of how awesome it is to be a woman. Okay, so now really, you guys, I don't have any particular makeup look that I'm going for. I just want to chat with you guys. So some off-camera items that I did use, because makeup and talking can take a little bit longer than normal. I didn't want this to be a movie. I just wanted it to be a get ready with me. I ain't even really going anywhere. So here's some off-camera items that I did use. All right, this is the primer that I am using, and it's from a company called Revolution. It is their mattifying primer. I have been using this for a few months now, and I definitely do like it as my base or my primer for before I put my foundation on. And then I just also picked this up at Sephora. I wanted to try a new brow pomade or whatever the case is. So I am trying this one. So all right, so this is what I'm using now for my eyebrows. So far I would say that I like it. I don't have any complaints about it, so we'll see how it actually does. I'm not going anywhere, like I said. You excuse my nails. I just really haven't gotten a chance to do my nails, you guys, so don't judge me. All right, now let's get into what we're here for. Okay, so as my women's rock and makeup segment, I wanted to talk about a woman that is pretty close to my history. So if you don't know, if you've been watching my channel for some time now, I'm sure you know that I am first generation Haitian American. So I was born in the States, but my mom was born in Haiti. Shout out to Okai. So I was raised pretty much Haitian, very much Haitian culture. But I wasn't born in Haiti. That's pretty much one of the main differences. But I actually wanted to talk about a woman that, well, let's kind of take this back a little bit. When we think about Haiti, if any of us know about the history of Haiti, we know that Haiti is known to be one of the first black countries to gain their independence. And when we think about Haiti and its independence, some of the names that come to mind, or the names that probably come to mind, is Jean-Jacques Dessalines, as well as Toussaint Louverture. You can't tell the story about Haitian Revolution and not mention those names. Like, those are probably if not at the top of the list. That's just it. However, I feel like we will be very remiss not to mention the heroines and the women that were very much involved, very much instrumental in the Haitian Revolution. So I decided to talk about our very own Cecile Fatiman. I'm not going to try to make this too much a makeup tutorial, so I'm not going to talk too much about the makeup that I am using, but just know for the eyes, I will probably more likely be staying in the Jacqueline Hills palette. For makeup, for my blush, I will be using the Morphe blush palette. This one is the Cool Pro 8C. For contouring, I will be using this Ruby Kiss. I think it's RK by Kiss. You can get this at any beauty supply store. Just some regular eyeshadow brushes. Sephora will be my finishing powder. Also, this Sephora stick will be used for contouring. I'll be using this for highlighting from MAC. This is the Show Gold. We'll be using this for setting my highlighter. For foundation, I will be using the Matte and Poreless foundation from Maybelline Fit Me. I'm also going to be showcasing some lashes from a company that reached out to me to try their lashes. So I will be trying their lashes. I'll leave the information below, so if you guys love the way the eyelashes came out, you guys can reach out to that company and definitely go to them to get those lashes. So I think I've pretty much talked about the makeups that I will be using, so that I'm not constantly having to show that in the screen, because like I said, makeup and storytelling is not my best forte. So we're starting off with the eye, and I'm going to be putting some, we're starting off with the eye, so I'm going to be putting some concealer. All right, so the information that I got to showcase the women rock and makeup segment that I am doing today, I pretty much used information from Google, so different sources from Google, as well as some other videos that I found on YouTube that I was able to get a little bit more information about. I'm going to be starting off with the transition color. So anyways, so Fatiman, Cecile Fatiman was actually what most would be considered a mulatto. She was what most would be considered a mulatto. She was born in Africa to an African slave mother, and her father was a white Frenchman from a place, I believe the name is Corisca. Excuse me if I'm not pronouncing this correctly. He was said to have possibly been a prince from Corisca, and I believe he was Fatima's mother, or Cecile's mother, slave owner. Now, the information that I was able to obtain about Cecile's mother is that she was beautiful. She had dark skin. She was beautiful, very shapely, and very soft-spoken. Her slave owner obviously wanted to have fun with her because she was considered beautiful. I think I'm gonna go ahead and find another transition color, just because I don't feel like the one from this palette is doing me. Okay, so where she was born is unsure. I wasn't able to kind of identify or pinpoint exactly where she was born in Africa. It is said that she may have been born either between 1771 and 1775. Now, she did also have other siblings. All right, you guys, I ended up just going and getting my NYX USP 03 palette. It has like a lot of neutrals and warm and neutral colors on there, which I always normally use for my transition color. So in case you want to know why, in case you care. So anyways, so she was known. It was said that she actually had brothers. Cecile was actually very beautiful as well, according to sources. She looked like her mother. She was she was dark skinned with green eyes, and also had silky, long silky hair. This is how they explained how Cecile pretty much looked. So Cecile and her mother was sold to another slave while they were in Africa, and was later sold to another slave owner and sold to Hispaniola or Saint-Domingue, which is now known as Haiti. In regards to Cecile's brothers, there's actually not much information on what happened to them. They were also sold off to other slave owners, but they were separated from the mother as well as from Cecile. Cecile was sold with her mother to Saint-Domingue. Okay, now around this time frame that Cecile was actually sold to, well, Cecile and her mother was sold to Saint-Domingue. If I have my information correct, the story says that she was about 14 years old at the time that she was sold over to Saint-Domingue along with her mother. However, Cecile actually was sold. Well, Cecile's mother actually was sold again to somewhere else. I didn't get the information on where exactly she was sold to, but she was separated from her mother again when they actually got to Saint-Domingue. So by the time they got to Saint-Domingue, she was again separated from her mother. So at this point, Cecile was pretty much on her own as far as her family goes. She pretty much was the only one that was in Saint-Domingue, which is again modern day Haiti. Characteristics that she had of her father may have been the eyes as well as the hair, but her complexion and actually her facial features were basically from her mother, according to sources. Now, when we actually go further into the story, we don't get much information about her slave life in Haiti while she was in Haiti. The story, from most of the information that we pretty much got from the story, is that it just pretty much jumps from her being sold to Haiti at 14 with her mom. Her mom separates, now she's there by herself, and then it goes into how she was instrumental to the Haitian Revolution. Now, the other thing we want you to keep in mind when it comes to Fatiman's story is that Fatiman was known as a Mambo. If you're Haitian or if you know anything about Haiti's history or just Voodoo, you would know that Mambo is considered a highest priestess. Fatiman, however, was known as a white Voodoo priestess. I don't know too much about Voodoo. That's not how I grew up. I know that it is very prominent in Haiti, not only Haiti, but in the Caribbean. We know that there's other states there's other places in the state that Voodoo is very prominent in, such as Louisiana. And I'm sure Haiti's culture had a lot to do with that as well. But what I did gather from that, is that in Voodoo, which is a religion, there are different colors, there are different, levels and things like that. So those who practice white Voodoo is basically a practice that involves nature, that's very nurturing, that's very clean, that's very protective. Okay, very much into the healing aspects of things. Again, this story is not about Voodoo. I'm not trying to get you guys to understand Voodoo because I myself don't understand it, but we can't really tell Cecile's story without mentioning Voodoo because it's very much a big part of her story. What I was able to gather about Cecile's story, it doesn't mention how she got involved in Voodoo. It doesn't mention if maybe her mom was into Voodoo and that's how she got into it. It doesn't mention if maybe she got into it while she was sold into Haiti. It doesn't mention how she got into it. She was fairly young. Like I said, she was sold to Haiti at the age of 14. So to me, I'm thinking about my 14-year-old self. To get into something like Voodoo, I don't think it's something that she probably learned while she was there. She probably already was probably something that she was brought up in, probably through her mother. But again, the story doesn't mention that. I'm just kind of taking my own my own dip into how I think. So again, she's 14. She's considered a high priestess in white voodoo. So now we kind of, you're probably gonna be seeing how this all ties into the history of Haitian Revolution. Somehow Fatiman was introduced or became acquaintance with another young man. I don't know his age. I'm sure I could have probably got more information about his age. However, I didn't want to make the story too much about him because again, we're talking about Women's History Month, and so the story was more or less about the women involved in this in the Revolution of Haiti. But there was a man by the name of Dutty Boukman who was said to have been African enslaved, who was sold to Jamaica, and then somehow was sold or was in Haiti. So he was enslaved in Haiti. So together, Boukman and Cecile pretty much decided that they would join forces to put an end to slavery. Like, enough was enough with slavery in Haiti. The slaves there just had enough. Now, another thing I do want you to keep in mind just to kind of get like a little bit more background and get a little bit more in depth into the story. My understanding when I did a little bit more, as I was doing research, so in the Caribbean or in Hispaniola or Saint Domingue at the time, the slaves there were treated so bad compared to the slaves in, let's say, the States, okay? They were treated so bad there that it was said that whenever the slaves in, let's say, the slaves in the States acted up or, got pretty much out of line, they were basically sold or sent to Haiti, to modern day Haiti, but Saint Domingue at the time, to pretty much, that was their punishment. Instead of killing them or instead of lynching them or whatever the case is, that wasn't always the case. They were sent to Saint Domingue because the slaves there were treated so bad that was just punishment enough. All right, so again, this is, to kind of paint the picture as to why the slaves in Haiti, it was do or die for them. They got to the point where enough is enough. And you got the famous saying, give me liberty or give me death. That was how they were looking at things there. I need to be free, or death might just be the best thing at this point. So with that being said, again, so they came up with the bright idea to try to overthrow the Frenchmen that were in Haiti. So they decided to pretty much come up with a meeting. I believe now some of the stories mention that Boukman was also considered an Uga, which is a high priest in Voodoo for the male, obviously. So with them joining forces, this was actually a ceremony. Now, so Boukman was, so some sources say that Boukman was an Uga. Some sources doesn't mention that, but a lot of the sources did mention that he was an Islamic, or he was Islamist from Jamaica. And so the slaves, as a sign of respect, didn't really call him by his name, but they call him Imam. And so that's where the idea where they were going to meet at Bois Kai Imam, meaning the woods at Imam's house. That's where that idea. So now we're going to do a little bit of fast forwarding. Now this is about August. So this is, I think, sometime in August. The dates are a little off. Some sources have different dates, so I'm not going to quote too much the date. But some sources have it occurring in August of 1791. The meeting that they're going to be having at Waka Imam is occurring in August. Okay. Now, by this time, again, Cecile is about between the age of either 14 or 20. Again, sources, it's very all over the place when it comes to the sources, I guess, because of the time. So records, I'm sure record keeping was not their greatest thing. The other thing also is that when it came time to tell the story of Cecile Fatiman, okay, so for a very long time, her story was not even a story that was told for whatever reason. I'm sure there's reason behind it. But for a long time, we didn't know about Cecile. So as far as the records behind her and things like that, they really weren't all that like in place. Now, again, all right. So basically, at this point, the meeting is basically taken into places at in the woods by Imam's home, and now this is not only a meeting, but it's also a ceremony, a religious ceremony. High Priestess Cecile Fatiman does a couple of things. I've never been to a ceremony, so I don't know what it consists of. But most ceremonial things will involve some sort of sacrifice and things of that sort. So it was called to have animal sacrifice, which included, I believe, a female pig to be slaughtered. Again, some sources also mention that there were two humans that came forward that actually allowed themselves to be sacrificed for this greater good. Again, it is speculation. Not all sources mention this human sacrifice, and some sources do. Okay, now, so what Cecile basically did, after she pretty much did her ritual, and during this ritual, it was said that she was pretty much possessed by, a particular spirit who was known to be very powerful. During this time, they're pretty much calling on to their ancestors in Africa to help them with this battle that they're about to take on. Okay. And when I tell you this was a battle, it was a battle to reckon with. Now, this was a battle against 1791. Haiti actually got their independence in January 1st, 1804. So you can see how it was many years before the actual battle that allowed Haiti to get their independence. This actually started years before. So that's why I'm saying, like, we know about this island, we know about Toussaint Louverture, but we can't forget about where we believe it all pretty much started, which was at Wakaima. Now, so while Cecile is she's doing her religious ceremony, she said to have gotten possessed by this very powerful spirit. She's calling on to the spirits to pretty much help them with what they're pretty much needing to accomplish, which is to become free from their oppressors, from their slave masters and things of that sort. Now, she did have the animal blood that they did use to sacrifice during this ceremony. Pretty much everybody that was involved in the ceremony, which was hundreds of slaves, were called to actually drink the animal blood, as well as the human. If the human blood was taken, if the human blood was indeed used, they pretty much had to drink that as well. Now, this was needed in order to kind of get everything going with the process. They're asking their ancestors to pretty much protect them while they take on this battle that they're going to take on. So yeah, like this was part of what was needed. So sources pretty much mention that Cecile was based on what was needed from the spirit that she took on, she had to pretty much stab the sacrifice 7 times and then draw the blood, and that was the blood that was pretty much drunk, and everybody had to drink in order to be protected through this battle that they were going to take. Now, so what Boukman pretty much called after this ceremony took place, what Boukman and Cecile pretty much advised the slaves to do was to pretty much burn the town down to crisp, like to the floor. And that's what the slaves pretty much did. After, during or after the ceremony, the slaves pretty much were chanting, they were singing. But what I would like to know is, while they're having this secret meeting, like, I am sure hundreds of this, I don't know, y'all. Sometimes, I'm not trying to say the story is not making sense, but what I'm trying to figure out is, how the heck did the slave masters not hear what was going on? Like, if hundreds of people are singing, chanting, and all this stuff, you mean to tell me that nobody caught on to this? Whatever. So anyways, they're chanting, they're singing, and pretty much getting ready for this battle. And they have their machetes at hand, like, by all means necessary at this point. Like, enough was enough. Like, we about to get this in. So as Boukman and Cecile, who's pretty much leading this whole insurrection, and I'm sure you guys have heard that word most recently. So they're the leaders of this slave rebellion, this great slave rebellion. They go out. They go out and they set themselves to take on their slave masters. Now, so they go out there and they set themselves to go slave to pretty much free themselves from their slave masters. But those slaves that by neighboring villages who were not able to physically be able to do things, they agreed to pretty much poison their masters through the water. So now the slaves go out there and they are not, they are out there and they're not gonna go out without a fight, in other words. And they feel as though, based on the ceremony, they were pretty much protected by the spirits that was called on during the ceremony. And with that being said, so they go out there with their machetes and they're like, it's a showdown. It's a showdown so they go out there and it's a showdown. It's a showdown. The slaves pretty much went out there. They, burned down everything. They burned down everything. And the only people that were pretty much exempted from being slaughtered through this process was women and children, according to getting some of the information from. So this showdown, this insurrection went down for 3 days, okay? This, I believe, happened in MakeUp, according to this source, and the fires was so strong, like, it can be seen many, like, villages away, to the point they said that the fires were so strong that, like, literally at nighttime you didn't even need the sun. Like, the light from the fire alone could be considered enough light for you to read. Like, they weren't playing. They were not playing, and with reason. Like, it's just not cool. It's not cool what they were doing to them slaves. It's not cool. I mean, we're not gonna get into it. It just wasn't cool, and that was enough. And the slaves were like, we're not doing this. So after 3 days of what was going on, many homes were burned down. Many slave owners were killed and slaughtered. Like I said, it went down. The killings and all that, and all that was going on after 3 days. Pretty much the French army had to step in. And as they stepped in, pretty much they were able to capture Dati Boukman, which was the Ungan, or the the Islamic Jamaican that pretty much was working hand in hand with Cecile Fatiman to pretty much get this thing going. They were able to get a hold of him, and they did slaughter him. They killed him, and they brought their head. They brought his head. They brought his head to the slaves to pretty much remind them or to show them that they got their master. And when they displayed his head, what they put on it was Boukman, Chef de Revolution des Esclaves, which pretty much mean bookman, chief of the slave revolution. So when the slaves got a hold of that information, you know, mind you, again, when they did the ceremony, you know, they were under the impression that Boukman was going to be untouchable. So when they saw that, they, you know, most of them got scared, I believe, and decided to kind of surrender. So at that point, there is when kind of things slowed down, and they surrendered. And it doesn't say much information about what happened after they surrendered. Obviously, the surrendering didn't stop there, because eventually in 1804, they did get their independence. Okay, so as promised, I did tell you guys that I was going to go ahead and give you specs on the lashes that I am wearing today. All right, so again, these lashes were sent to me by a company, which I mentioned. I will go ahead and have the information in the description below for you. But the name of the company is called Crystal Love Lashes. So if you want to follow them on Instagram, it's Crystal_Love Lashes. The style that I am wearing in this look is Madam VP. All right, and I think this would be fit for the story that I am telling, as well as the look. I'm pretty much wrapping up because my camera is telling me, sis, you ain't got much time. I'm like on the last bar of battery. But I know I mentioned earlier about the ritual that was taking place when at Wakaima. So when I did mention the pig that was slaughtered or that was sacrificed, I did want to I want to make sure that I kind of tell the whole story, so those that's listening to this story doesn't look at it as being something that was very barbaric, but the story behind as to why they did what they did and the meaning behind it, like the ritualistic meaning behind it. So when it came down to the ritual, a black female wild pig is presented to the Mumbo, who is leading this ritual. Now, the pig is pretty much presented to her as a symbol of liberty. Liberty is supposed to be free and untamed, just as the wild pig. This is the reason why they chose to, or this is why the pig is involved in the ritualistic portion of the ceremony. Now the pig, again, as I mentioned before, it is stabbed 7 times, and all participants, again, some stories said they drank it, others say that they put their hands into the blood, and pretty much they are doing this to kind of take an oath. And when they take this oath, the oath is to fight this big fight. They were said to have said, "Vive libre ou mourir," live free or die. Dati Boukman, as well as Cecile Fatiman, did urge the slaves to take vengeance against their oppressors, the French oppressors, and cast aside the image of God, the image of their God, or the God of the oppressors. Again, you have to kind of keep in mind that we're not gonna, I know this is another topic, but the slaves that were brought to these islands or to this new land and that were being enslaved, they were not, like, when it came down to their religion or who they consider their God or their gods, okay, because in certain religions, it was kind of like a multi-spirit situation, you know. And they weren't raised off of the God of the French, which was Catholicism, you know, the white God. So they were forced to kind of learn the religion of the white Frenchmen. And again, this is something that the Bookman and Cecile did definitely wanted to do away with, so that they can be free and practicing what they know, what they grew up on, you know, what they were raised on, that the oppressors were trying to erase. I'm gonna go ahead and pretty much start to finish off the look, as the story is pretty much finishing. So anyways, I'm gonna go in with my lipstick. Because it is a light color, I am going to be lining my lips with a liner from MAC, which is the Chestnut. She actually was never captured. It was said that she was able to escape to go to neighboring villages and pretty much help other villages and slaves to pretty much do the same thing. Again, speculation, not all sources says this. We do, however, know that she did live, according to many sources, she did live on to see 112 years old, where she did die pretty much of old age. She later, also in her later years, Cecile Fatiman did end up being a first lady. She became married to Louis Michel Pirot, or Pirot, depending on how you pronounce it. And then again, like I said, she did live on to see 112 years old, where she did die of old age. This is basically the story of Cecile Fatiman. The reason why I like the story of Cecile Fatiman is it's not only a story of triumph, I feel like it's a story of holding on to your identity. A lot of times, especially, I'm sure not only Black people, but just different cultures altogether. You know, your family travels from many miles to come here, you know, searching for a good life, or a different life, I should say. And as products or as children of immigrants, we find ourselves kind of lost, because you have your culture of your family that you probably and you know, we're expected to present ourselves and to fit in, you know. And with the slaves, they didn't want to fit in. They didn't want to, you know, and not even fit in. Forget that. They didn't want to be forced to live a life simply because that's what the white Frenchmen wanted, you know. And Cecile and Betty Bookman, they set out to make sure that that wasn't the case. I hope that this story definitely sets the tone for the remaining stories. I'm gonna try to see if I can go not only in Haiti, but I'll probably do like another one from Haiti, but I will be doing other cultures as well as, you know, our own American cultures, women from our own cultures, and how, you know, these sheroes paved the way for us, you know. I hope you guys like the look, okay? I kept it very simple. You guys already know when I'm telling a story and doing makeup, it's not the easiest thing, so it's always easy for me to just keep the look simple. But I hope that you guys enjoy what I came up with. I hope you guys like the earrings that I did put on just to kind of go with the storyline. But again, until we meet again, hopefully we'll be very soon. Later.